The WWE just had the greatest 5 minutes of wrestling history. How did that happen? What happened because of decades of building for this one moment. But it wasn't just this one moment. It was a story that was being told because of all those years of build-up. And today we're going to be talking about how we can learn from that secret as content creators from somebody that was a former professional wrestler. Andru Edwards. So he used to be a wrestler and he wanted to talk about tech and he turned into a creator. He was always integrating elements of entertainment that he learned from being a professional wrestler in his content. So really, exciting, always on for the camera. But just 2 decades, not just, 2 decades later, he's integrating the most important aspect of wrestling, which is storytelling, to get tons more views than he was getting on his average videos. And we're going to be diving into how he does that with storytelling right now. There's 3 things about Andru that I think are amazing. Obviously, he's a tech content creator, not just on YouTube, but on all platforms. He kind of prides himself on being everywhere. But there's 3 things about him I'd say that are really impressive. Number 1, he's been in the tech niche forever. So we're talking pre-YouTube. Oh, wow. And that's like a lot of history. Yeah. And you have a lot of context with how tech started, the different evolutions and the ups and downs and the different players. So he's very knowledgeable. Secondly, the fact that he's still relevant to this day, I would argue even more so. It's very difficult to be a creator, first off, but then to keep it sustained throughout a whole decade. I mean, like, he's flirting with 20 years. I don't know. I think maybe he's been a creator for 20 years before that term was even a thing.
That's
because
amazing.
He started with a blog. Secondly, the fact that he's still relevant to this day, I would argue even more so. It's very difficult to be a creator, first off, but then to keep it sustained throughout a whole decade. I mean, like, he's flirting with 20 years. I don't know. I think maybe he's been a creator for 20 years before that term was even a thing.
That's
because
amazing.
He started with a blog. The third thing about him is his instinct as a creator and his creativity. Meaning, he's not obviously, I mean, a lot of people know Andru Edwards. He has a pretty good following, but he's not like MKBHD. He's not like the most famous or anything like that, but he still has an instinct where he can recognize where the tech game is going. And so he's been able to adjust and of course evolve. And why do I mention that in regards to like not being the biggest? Because usually, people just assume if you're the biggest, you have that instinct and that's why you're the biggest. But see, everybody's got their own like place in their niche, in their industry, in their world. And I don't look at somebody in just their numbers and determine like that those skills that they have based off of their influence. And so he's one of those people that when I first met him, he wasn't that influential. He was just doing it full time. I interviewed him, one of my first early uploads in Seattle on video influencers.
Oh, really?
But he's just got this great instinct about content, about communities, and then just being a creator and his willingness to evolve. So just recently, he started getting into kind of storytelling. So he's always been like
that creative instinct that you
for sure.
About.
He's always a product review guy. He works with a lot of brands, does events, hosts events. Him and I have actually attended, the same conferences, conventions. But he is now starting to apply storytelling. Now, of course, you and I, we're all about vlogging because we know that vlogging is coming back. People are starting vlog channels as full-time creators, or people want to start a vlog channel as like the format that they want to launch with. He is just taking the element of storytelling that we know is powerful with vlogging and integrating it into his content. And recently, he put out a video that really popped for him, of course, you get a little bit of the credit because it was your style where you're not only taking your perspective of a topic, Apple Vision Pro being one of them, but he's also kind of stealing other people's stories, other people's explanations, in this case, even other people's content, integrating in there. I mean, it's very Casey Neistat-ish.
Yeah, true.
But he's doing it in the tech space on his channel, and it's taken off. So anyways, that's why I wanted to go talk to him today and, just talk shop, interview him, and ask him what his thoughts are generally on YouTube and where it's going, because one thing that him and I kind of connected on last time we hung out, we were eating Korean barbecue. He also understands YouTube is going towards this longer format content. People love the stories, but also it's more relaxed. And yes, we're taking a road trip right now. It's Washington State, so everything's green. It's springtime. Things are just finally blooming. The leaves are returning to the trees. No, but did you watch WrestleMania?
I sure did.
Oh my gosh.
I sure did.
So
2 nights.
Yeah, so this is the thing. I'm just watching the highlights, right? I'm never watching WrestleMania.
YouTube? Watching YouTube?
Total spoiler alert, by the way. I Twitter, actually,
Okay.
weirdly.
Interesting.
Yeah, X. But to see, like, The Rock coming back is not unusual anymore because now he's an owner or something, right?
Yeah.
So he's, like, always kind of around. It doesn't have that same kind of impact anymore. But to see John Cena run, like, and kind of be, like, heroic or whatever, and then to see The Rock kind of get in his face and they're doing their thing, that was all, like, awesome. But then, like, The Undertaker. And, the reason I even watched it wasn't because it was WrestleMania, because the posts on Twitter were best 5 minutes of WWE history. Like, I was okay, I've been watching I've been wrestling since the 90s. Like, as a kid, I would go from couch to couch and do the people's elbow
there you go.
right on the ground, right?
Same here.
Yeah. And so, like, I was like, okay, let me see this. Would you say it's the best 5 minutes?
Yeah, or I think it was like the best 10. I think it was like 10 minutes. Yeah, it was like, because it wasn't just all those things happening, because it was like there was a story that they were telling, which I always tell people, like, when you watch wrestling, it's not really about the wrestling. Yeah. It's not really about the fights. It's about the stories in between, right?
Even the angle they had of John Cena, I thought, like, from a creator standpoint, now that I film content, I'm even looking at the framing. It was interesting because after John Cena threw that guy, I don't even know who that guy is, onto the table, right? And then The Rock's theme song comes on. It's a close-up of John Cena's face.
Right.
And then you just barely see The Rock's, like, graphics come up and he's in the background. It's like, interesting. That camera guy probably already had that plan.
Yes.
And, like, like the director is like, you need to get to that spot.
Get his reaction first before you show him and get the reaction of what's happening. Yeah. Exactly.
Go from, like, his resting face to, like, the reaction face, and then capture him, like, turning around. And I was thinking this is why I agree with you. To create that story or the drama, you have to capture that angle like that. Because back in the day, I don't think they did that much of like dramatic angles and framing.
Right.
And I was just thinking, like, the last time I was watching it regularly was 2000. 2001. So, like, to go 20 years forward, I'm a creator now. I understand creating content. I'm no, like, like Christopher Nolan or a director, but I understand, like, how to frame something to make it, like, interesting. I was like, this is so crazy. And that's what captured me when I saw John Cena's face and The Rock, whatever. But yeah, like, would you say that was up there? I mean, what
I would say so, for sure. And you have.
And what made it that?
Because they've been building this story of Roman Reigns, who lost, right? He had the championship
for long hair,
like, I think it was like 1,600 days or something. So years. This is actually his 4th straight WrestleMania defending that title, which has never happened before. So everybody's waiting for him to finally lose. And it's like, it's been 4 years. What's it going to take? And it was almost like the Avengers. Roman Reigns has his guys, and they keep coming in to mess with Cody Rhodes. And then someone would come in and, like, neutralize, like the Avengers Endgame. So once all of his henchmen were out of the picture, he had nothing left, and he finally lost after 4 years. So it was like this crazy. That was one part of the story. And the other part, the guy who won, he is the son of a very famous wrestler, Dusty Rhodes, who was a huge guy back in the day. He never was able to win the world championship.
Oh, got it. So,
so he was wanting to do this for his dad.
Very nostalgic.
Right. So there's all these things came together at one time. I watched that one movie
with the brothers and the dad, and like there was all that death.
Iron Claw.
Yeah. And I feel like, especially with that movie coming out, there's this nostalgia about old school wrestlers, and then this new guy that is the son, bringing the glory back for the family name.
Yes.
And that's what's kind of nuts about wrestling. You've always had that, because how many years now? Probably 50 years of wrestling?
More than that.
More than that.
Yeah.
But 50 years is significant. So now you've got I saw some of the videos on Twitter, grandparents watching WWE, WrestleMania, right? Like with their grandkids. Right,
because they used to watch it when they were little.
Yeah, it's like that probably made that moment even more. But I understood as like somebody that stopped kind of watching, kind of followed here and there. But the last time I saw The Undertaker, he was like on a podcast with Mankind, right?
Okay.
And he looked like he was retired, basically.
Right. Yeah. He's
so when I saw him show up after the thing went black, and that kind of was his thing, right?
Yes,
like he would always show up. Would he show up literally like by surprise though?
Yeah.
Was that his thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like behind The Rock, and that's what I always thought about The Rock. As much as I loved him, it was getting old that he was like the top dog.
Yeah.
And it was refreshing. So I'm not even talking about the Cody guy. It was just refreshing that someone could just take The Rock by the neck and then slam him down, right? And then he just disappears, and that was it.
He's done.
And I didn't even see The Rock, but probably rolled over or whatever. Anyways, I just had to geek out for a second. I love wrestling because, and I think this kind of great segue to like what I wanted to talk to you about is the storytelling in general of YouTube.
That's right, yes.
You and I have known each other now, I know we kind of go back and forth, but early 2010s, right? Over a decade.
For sure.
But you and I have both been on YouTube forever and been content creators, in your case, even longer than YouTube. But the whole storytelling element in 2024, how it's kind of coming back. Now for me, right, I think about vlogging and the storytelling that me and Judy have done naturally, but we never isolated it to storytelling. You being in the tech space, definitely never really storytelling at all. It's in a way, it's kind of cold and black and white in terms of how tech was being reviewed, because it was just, if anything, the way I looked at tech forever, ultimate reviews of products. That's it. Like even when you did it fun, it was inevitably just like talking about the benefits of the products, what was bad, what was good, and that was it. And just like whoever could do it the best. Yeah. And the thing that fascinated me about you is what you just recently did with the Apple Vision Pro. And my question is, what's your thought on where YouTube was, where it's at, and where it's going? And it doesn't even have to be in regards to storytelling, but like what's your general thoughts on the platform right now?
Yeah, I think the way I look at it, I think it's a little different than most people, because I don't really think there is a YouTube way of doing things, because you can look at 10 different channels who are doing it 10 different ways, right? All successfully. Obviously, the bigger the creator is, the more people are going to try to replicate what they do, like Mr. Beast. Yeah. Everybody started doing the Mr. Beast style of editing, retention editing, crazy. I never saw value in that. I mean, I get it. I get why, but it's not what I think my audience would want to see.
By the way, it'd be kind of cringy if I did start seeing those thumbnails come from your channel and you started doing that. No, I totally agree. No, I mean, the point you made, though, that I have always known, but even more so now, there's not just 10 ways to do it. There's like 100 ways to do it. Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's within each niche. Yeah. And then, so I think the whole storytelling idea is that was already done in the early days. And now it's like all the highly optimized stuff, the Mr. Beastification or whatever, it's almost kind of like old to this new generation.
Yeah.
We look at it as like, hey, it's a great opportunity to do something different. Maybe like we can speak to it because of our history, but these new creators, they almost look at it as like, it's cool not to do the Mr. Beast stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that happens with everything though. Like every generation doesn't want to be what the previous generation was, right? So it's like, oh, that's what my parents were doing, or maybe that's what my older sibling. I don't want to do that. That's because that's uncool to do. So I need to do it
Facebook,
differently.
Right?
Exactly.
That's why Snapchat was cool.
Exactly. So I think with storytelling, I think there's a rise in storytelling right now, but I think it's less of a new thing and more of a realization, because I mean, people were around fire pits, in the caveman days telling stories, right?
Yep.
So it's like, it's almost just realizing, oh, that's how you present stuff. So like even with tech, right? It's remembering that not everyone is like a super high level geek that wants to know all the specs and how much RAM is in this and how fast. Most people don't care. Most people go to the Apple store. They don't care. Apple doesn't even tell you how fast things are. And they just, here's what it does, right? So it's like marketing 101 is don't sell the product, sell the solution. Yeah. What does it do for you? And so if you're able to instead of talking about how fast something is and all that, say, hey, here's this thing I was doing last week. Let me tell you about it. It was crazy. Yeah. And you talk about how this thing either, saved you or made your life easier or whatever, people will be enthralled. They want to hear that.
Also, it's way more interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's more just there's a realization happening now that there was this missing element for a lot of people, which is what's the story behind it? Or even if there's not just tell a story. Like, it doesn't have to be a real story. Just, hey, picture this, or imagine this scenario. Right? When you do that, you kind of capture people's attention and you hold it longer. So I think that's really what it was. And so I've been trying recently to really think about what is the story behind a feature or a product that will really help me explain what this does on a non-technical level. Yeah. Because I think that's really meeting the most people where they're at, because most people really don't care about technical things.
And of course, you're talking about it from the tech space standpoint, but more broadly, the benefit to all creators, and just correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you mentioned last time we hung out, when you do tell stories, especially if it's a long story, and how long was that last video that popped off for you? It was like 30 minutes?
I felt like it was about 30 minutes, 28 minutes, something like that, yeah.
Audience retention tends to be really good too. Like I found when I tell stories, especially if it's a long story, because I don't know, I did a video in the last couple months, I think was like 40 minutes, and it was my #1 audience retention thing. Had the least amount of editing.
Wow.
Right? Of course, it was an emotional story, and I had to do something that's near and dear to me. But in terms of production, in fact, the lighting was horrible too. Like I used a light in the room I was staying at like my buddy's house. Yep. And like I was even using my phone, I think, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, the iPhone's gotten a lot better, but the least amount of production, least amount of editing, almost no cuts at all, because it's just raw, but I'm just telling this long story. Yeah, and it's just crazy because as a creator, I don't know if you ever felt this way, I would get annoyed when I'd see a creator put out content that took little to no work at all, and they would get millions of views, right? And I'm just like, I want to do that. Right. And so I think that there's different ways to do it, of course, and different reasons why that person gets views, right? Like I always celebrate it at the end of the day. I didn't just critique it. Yeah. But storytelling, what's awesome, because guess what? When you're telling a story, everybody wants to know what happens at the end.
Yes, exactly.
So it's just like a movie.
It's like a little trick. Like
for my wife, she falls asleep in the middle of the movie, so it doesn't matter to her. But for me, if I start a movie, I have to finish it.
Yeah.
And so like that's one of the takeaways for me. And I started with like the benefit of telling a story is you get high audience retention, and YouTube loves that, so they're more likely to promote you if it satisfies the viewer's need. But also, when you tell stories and you do it over and over and over, it's almost like you start building a relationship with that creator That's different than if it was just, in your case, a product review, or for me, like in terms of food, you know, like the mistake I was doing, like I was optimizing just to tell you the ingredients, how to do it, and then that's it. Right. So you might leave and never care that you watch it. Versus,
correct.
I can make a video like on the food channel. I've been doing this now for over 100 days. I'm telling you why I even want to make this dish, why I want to teach you this dish, how I learned it, right? Like why I picked this ingredient, like the mini story behind it. And it just makes it way more interesting. And then also just from a cooking standpoint, it's like sometimes the annoying thing is when you watch a 3 or 4 minute video and you have to keep rewinding and rewind it versus Kenji Lopez is doing it at a high level. I'm just letting my recipes go for 20 minutes now. So people kind of can sit there and listen. Yeah. So both on the interest side, but also in the more realistic side of viewing content. I feel like it's changing across the board, and creators, and I'm curious what you think, creators can actually integrate not just storytelling, but this idea of relaxing content into any niche. And it's like this huge opportunity right now.
Yeah, I think the real opportunity is doing these things lets people connect with you, right? It's not even about the thing, whatever the thing is, a new iPhone, a new recipe, whatever it is. Yes, I want to know about that. That's why I clicked on the video. I want to learn the recipe. I want to learn about the new iPhone. But as I'm watching the video, I'm getting to learn more about you. I'm getting to kind of establish, you know, a relationship with a one-way relationship, I guess. But if I learn more about you instead of just the thing you're showing me, I will more likely come back to you when I need more information about this topic, because there's almost like a trust. Even though you're just telling stories, it's like now you've established some sort of trust here, because I feel like you've let me into your world, and there's things I know about you that I don't know about other creators. So now you become my guy. Yeah. Right? You become my girl. So if I want to know more about whatever it is, makeup, knitting, right, tech, now you have proven to be so interesting that I want to come back and know more from you.
By the way, yeah, Austin was actually saying this too. We've been geeking out on the idea that, I mean, what's the name of the platform? YouTube, right?
Broadcast yourself was their slogan.
Yeah.
Broadcast yourself. And in the early days of YouTube, I always think about Phil DeFranco, right? He's like the OG in the kind of like topics or news stuff. But it was just him in front of a webcam talking, literally just talking, right? Talking about the story of the day and his perspective. He would give his opinion, whether you agree with him or not. I mean, like, I don't watch him anymore, but there was a time for years I just put him on because of that trust, right? That relationship. And what's happening is like we're coming full circle. The young kids, this new generation, they think it's cool because it's different. It's like opposite from Mr. Beastification over optimization. We're just like, hey, I mean, like, I'm not saying this is the only reason, but it's like audience retention, right? People want to watch it. It's a little less work, different type of work. Yeah. But ultimately, for the viewer, and that's what matters the most, the viewer is connected to you. Yeah. And then when you do that, you don't have competition the same way as when, like Austin, would you say, when you optimize to a point where it becomes a commodity?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing in any industry. Like the example I always use is like Kleenex, right? It's really good at one thing, you do it, and then everybody makes it, right? And then there's nothing to differentiate it from anything else, right? Whereas like an Apple product, you'd understand, right? And they differentiate themselves by being different from the rest of the crowd.
And it's crazy that you even mentioned this, because we didn't talk about this before this conversation, right? But that you said, like, ultimately, the biggest, like, a takeaway or benefit for a creator is that the storytelling and this new relaxed type of content makes you the highlight. Right. So that there isn't, like I said, well, ultimately it's still competitive, right? But there isn't somebody that can replicate you. And if you do it over and over, I know this for a fact with Judy. Like when Judy now walks into a room, right? There's not just viewers, but creators that have been watching her for a decade. Yeah. Like the reaction they get. And it's not because she was the best at makeup. she did, she was known for hair tutorials or whatever, but, she has since stopped that, 2015.
Okay.
And it's not even, she's an amazing editor. She's not necessarily the best, right? There's people that's their whole profession and build businesses around it. But it's just the fact that she showed up every day for so long. It's like a one-way friendship. But I never looked at that and thought oh, anyone could do it. I just thought she's this unicorn. And I think to a certain degree she was. But it's funny, even me and you in our respective niches are integrating things that she was already doing naturally without thinking about audience retention or strategy or what was cool. It was just she started with writing a journal in high school, and this is an extension of that. It's her daily journal of her day.
Right.
Not realizing she was showing up on the other end of that screen to somebody else, building this relationship and that trust, and then people know her. The ultimate thing, I think, for a creator, it gives you the freedom to do a lot more and maybe whatever you want. You know who else does it at a high level? PewDiePie. PewDiePie has completely switched his formats. Have you seen this? He was a gamer at one point. I don't know his whole history, but I know he'll do gameplay and he's just playing the game and just talking about whatever. And then he would do the hey, this is the trending topic and do his commentary. And then sometimes it's just full on rants. Now I don't know where he's at right now, but it was the first time I saw somebody completely do a U-turn on their content, and that usually kills channels.
Right.
But then for him, it's I can't fathom going from food to just completely fitness stuff.
Yeah.
I love to work out.
Right.
But I feel if I took a different perspective where the storytelling and the hanging out and showing up every day where I'm doing, I wonder if I could build up, and I actually already know the answer, build up a core audience that actually now wants to just follow me because they trust me. So guess what? Just like with the food and the recipes, they trust me. They probably would trust me maybe with their health and what I do because they just want to know. It's just kind of with your friends. It's we learned this off of Facebook and social platforms. We'd rather get the opinions of family and friends on this product we're going to buy than even a YouTube review. But now, as a creator, you can be that friend to a huge mass audience.
Right. And that is where you get to do almost whatever you want because it's we're friends, right? So if I come to your house or you come to my house, it's not I only want Benji to talk about food or I only want Benji to talk about YouTube because the second he talks about something else, I'm leaving, right? It's no, we're friends, so I want to let me hear everything about whatever topic because we're just hanging out, we're enjoying our time together.
YouTube, tech, food, wrestling, traveling.
Exactly.
We're hey, let's go to Japan sometime, right?
Yes,
the niche changed so many times.
Once you connect with someone that way, then it just becomes, I'm interested in what you have to say. You've proven to be interesting in this one area. So now I'm just interested in what you have to say. And obviously not everyone is not your entire audience, but like you said, the core. There's a core audience who will just be I'm along for the ride now. So you're in the driver's seat, take me where you want to go. I'm along for the ride because you've earned my trust and attention.
Yeah. Where do you think, for you, what's kind of the next phase? What do you think you'll do more of or people should start considering to do more of on YouTube to take advantage of the what'd you just say, the realization that this is what people want?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's really about listening. So my tactic has always been YouTube has been where I put my tech content, and the other platforms, whether it's X, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever, I still put tech content there too, but those traditionally have been the ones where I was more willing to be more myself, if that makes sense. I'll put what I'm eating on Instagram, but I wouldn't put that on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right? I'll put whatever, I'm at this interesting event, whatever it might be, on Instagram or Twitter, but not on YouTube. But now, especially since YouTube has also, they have the community tab.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. I was just thinking that.
Now they have the community tab only view.
Which I didn't know that.
Yeah. So on mobile, you can say, just show me community posts. And when you do that, it looks like a cross between Instagram and Twitter.
Like a social media
platform. It looks like so now you can just scroll that.
Have you used that?
I haven't. That's crazy.
Oh my God,
that's new. That just came out like in the past 2 weeks or something.
Oh,
where you can,
there you go.
You can say, just show me community posts. I don't want to see videos of my feed. Just show me the feed of community posts. Well, now that kind of gives you
freedom.
Permission. Oh yeah, I was going to say permission. The freedom to say, now I can reveal more of my personality or my life or behind the scenes on YouTube. Because it's always been weird to me that
integrate your personal.
In order to let people know who you are without hurting your channel, you need to leave YouTube. How weird is that?
Yeah, it is.
Right? Or even...
or start a whole nother channel.
Right, start a secondary channel.
Yeah. Which I know exactly how that's like because that's what me and Judy had to do. We literally had to have a whole nother channel. That I used to actually make it a joke. I was like, this is going to be our throwaway channel. It's Judy's life is going to be a throwaway to her beauty channel.
Oh, that's
Judy
funny.
Time, right?
And that became
a thing, right? In those early days. But no, I completely agree because other people who don't want to start another channel because it's another thing to manage.
Feels like a burden.
Yeah, it is, right? It's like easier to just go on social media. It was a huge missed opportunity. But also I think back then, you kind of had to do it because, and this is again, like how Mr. Beast, the vacation came to be. You had to optimize for the algorithm. You had to like be strategic for the platform, right? Now, this is, I think what's happening, YouTube became so big. I mean, when you're talking about the community app and going just to community tab, content only, it's like the everything app. Like literally everything can be on there. Now people can shop on there. You got your Google Wallet. I know that's like kind of a bold statement, but like you said, YouTube's biggest weakness, they didn't have the social on there. They tried with Google Plus, and it was like a shit show, right? Trying to integrate Google Plus into the comments, and you had to have a Google Plus profile. It was a horrible thing, and then of course they quit, and then they just went back to regular comments. But in a way, this whole community tab post only is like a much more graceful way of integrating the social stuff beyond what you're known for. And now people get to learn more about you. But I mean, what you are going to probably start doing more of, I hope, I know I'm doing it for sure, you can put it in your content. Because of the storytelling, opening up the conversation into just who you are, not just what you're saying.
Correct. But I think the community tab allows you to even like prime people for it. Like, hey, in my next video, I'm going to be going, you know what I mean? Like,
especially with polls.
Giving people, giving people the expectation that there's maybe a little shift or some extra information that you don't usually share. I feel like the one thing missing from YouTube now that they have that, is like a true community feature. Because right now, you have to post a piece of content in order for your community to interact with it.
Yes.
So if you want to have a community that just interacts themselves, you have to, again, leave YouTube and set up like a Discord, right? Or
that's
something where
crazy.
they
I've
can
never
talk to
even
each
thought
other.
about that.
Right? Why do I need, if I have a community of, let's say, 1,000 people, 500, 10 people, right? And they want to talk to each other, why they can't do that until I post something and then they can comment on my post. You have to leave and go to Discord, and then, because on Discord, you don't even have to be there. They can just talk amongst themselves. So I think that's something that YouTube needs to consider. Anything that makes people leave YouTube
is bad.
But leave YouTube to talk about the YouTube content, that is not good, and that should be addressed. So if there was a way to have a Discord-like chat room on your channel,
that's
where
crazy.
your
for sure.
followers could just talk amongst themselves,
and they're already doing it in the comments. They're already doing it in the comments, but it's like
but it's so disjointed.
Yeah, it is, right? And then another video goes up and the comments says, so like, you know, the power of Discord or Reddit, and correct me if I'm not as familiar, is like one conversation can just keep going forever.
For
right?
sure.
With the comments, it kind of stops once the next upload because everyone moves there. I mean, like, no one ever thought anything of it, but why end that discussion? And ultimately, this is another thing I'm seeing too. I'm curious your thoughts on it. I'm seeing the return of engagement, like comments and the replying of comments, be more heavy in terms of how YouTube weighs it for importance. See, back in the day, you would just say, hey, what was it like? Subscribe, like, and comment.
Yep.
Right? Like you're trying to game the system.
Right.
So YouTube
Right.
tried to stop that, right? Like they wanted it so that it was more authentic, but also they just thought, hey, let's turn off the whole, like if you get a like or a comment, that would help you rise to like recommended or trending or whatever. Because Phil DeFranco, again, he actually worked every one of these things until none of them worked.
Okay.
So what's happening, I feel like by 2020, they had it figured out. It was about viewer satisfaction. 2017, by the way, they started the journey of viewer satisfaction. Like, how do you even measure that? They taught me this at YouTube. That was like the end of all gaming of the algorithm. So it was more like real.
Okay.
Like videos that got high audience retention, but satisfied the viewer was the stuff that YouTube was trying to promote. So now it's like the slate is kind of clean because everything's set in a way that it's less about like a tactic or strategy and more about the content. Hence why we're going back to this like, or where we're having this realization about the story time and the you, right? The creator. And now what I'm finding is, I learned this actually on other platforms, but it's happening. Whenever I reply to people's comments, if I spend extra time replying and they're replying back to my reply and those conversations are heavy, I feel that the video benefits. Now, I can only comment like max 50 to 100 times, right? Like, and then it kind of like the ROI is missing. But I've noticed those videos tend to, maybe because people are coming back and because to like look at the comment, unless you're using the studio app, most people just go to the video, right?
Yeah, sure.
The video's playing more. So they're hanging out on my channel. They're hanging on my content.
Right.
And I wonder, I can't verify it, but I think ultimately the wisdom is the engagement, like you said, of people having the discourse or the back and forth or just the conversation is good for you, the creator, good for that video, but ultimately good for YouTube. Because what happens, like just micro this for a second. When you, the creator, reply to one of your fans, right? Do you think they kind of geek out a little bit?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And how do they geek out? They see the notification on their phone. They're like, Andrew, what? Right? Like for me, it's like if they see like Benji on TV, I imagine someone that's watched me for like 10 years, you know, my vlog or whatever. They're like, that can't be right. Because literally, like, I cannot believe you respond to me. So what do they do? They click on it. It goes to the video, to that comment. And what does YouTube like? YouTube likes when people watch a video and you keep them on, but then come back to the platform. You're getting them back. You see what I'm saying? Like, so logically, that's not something that's easy to game. I mean, I don't know. Like, are there bot replying things for comments?
There are AI, you can use like AI services
on YouTube
now.
comments?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they would catch that shit though.
I would assume,
I think. Like there's a way they know. So you see what I'm saying? Like that sweat equity, that effort you put out responding in turn, like over a course of time, as long as the video is good, right? If the video is shitty, one, no one's going to want to comment. And two, all the comments in the world won't help it because the algorithm knows. But when you put all those together, so do you like comment back on your stuff, and do you find engagement helps?
I always comment. I comment back to anyone who leaves a comment.
Yeah.
And I suspect, like the way you were just saying it, is that's how it works. I don't know. For sure. Like, but I would imagine it's not everything that you just said, but there's also the extra step too of, okay, they get the notification, they tap it, they go back to the video, right? But they're more than likely going to comment again.
Yes.
Like, oh, wow, I can't believe
another comment.
So you get another comment.
Times it by however many times you do that.
Right. So, yeah.
Speaking to the Discord idea in YouTube, that's another thing. That's why like my mind's blown about the community tab only function, because now in a way, think about it, a community tab almost lasts forever because if you keep the conversation going, right? Like posts literally go viral on other platforms. What if a community tab, which they actually sometimes do, like sometimes community tabs. Anyways, well, thank you so much for sharing me. I I've always told you, I've always been impressed with what you've done, right? Being somebody that's been in the space. It's hard to be in the space first off, and then do it at a high level, and then to sustain it over time. But this recent thing, I think, I mean, a little credit to Austin here, right? Like you saw what he was doing in terms of storytelling. Now you get full credit for what you did, but it popped off. But you and I, we're not having this discussion together. We came to this realization on our own.
Oh, yeah.
In our own way. And we're old fogies.
Right.
So I'm saying, like, this is something that this new generation and our seasoned creators are both seeing. And that's why it's significant to me. This is why I'm teaching vlogging in. And I'm coaching creators who want to vlog a little bit, do a little more like behind the scenes, but also this new crowd are starting with vlogging. See, a lot of people made the mistake, like they thought they're going to become a Casey Neistat, forgetting that Casey Neistat built an audience first and then did it, right? Same thing with my wife, had her beauty followers and then started a thing. But now what you're seeing is people straight off from the get-go doing vlogging, but not in that vlogging format of the 2015 era, like the new era. And Sam Solik being the most famous right now. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
Literally just a camera in the gym while he's working out. It's almost so ridiculous how like little production is, and like literally in the middle of his set, he'll just take a break and then he talks, right?
Right.
It's going against all the rules, but getting 1 million views.
Yep.
And so that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because you're integrating to a certain degree certain elements like the storytelling and showing a little bit more about yourself, because like the history lesson you gave was kind of mind-blowing and nobody was doing that. I mean, what was the thing that he did? What was the farthest back you went?
I went to like the Pony Express.
Okay. Okay, the Pony Express. I love history, right? So like for viewers, and this is where I want to end it, you were talking about Apple Vision Pro. Everybody's talking about what it does right now or what it could do.
Correct.
You're like, let's take you all the way back to the Pony Express and talk about how technology innovated over the years and why I think this is significant. So then guess what happens? After you start talking about the general stuff everyone's heard from every other tech creator, now it's like, oh, I want to hear how this story ends. It's like almost intriguing. It's like, what's a horse and a guy delivering mail have anything to do with it? That's how I thought.
What is this guy even talking about?
I watched your whole video. And so anyways, I mean, like any other last thoughts in regards to that? Because it's funny, I came here to talk to you about that, and the only thing we talked about in terms of your video was in the last like 2 minutes. But you were telling me the storytelling and all that kind of stuff is what you were seeing. You maybe got a little inspiration from watching somebody's video, but then now...
I think it's really, no, not even that. I think it's really, TikTok did this. TikTok did this. Because the most popular content on TikTok is just people in a car, sitting in their driver's seat or whatever. I'm just talking. There's no editing. There's no graphics. I'm just telling you something. And, you know, through the pandemic and everything, over the past, wow, I can't believe it's like 2024. The pandemic was 2020.
Crazy.
It's almost half a decade now. So TikTok, for almost half a decade now, people, especially young people, because they love TikTok, they just want to talk to the camera, right? What's easier than talking to the camera and hitting publish? Easier than dancing, right? There you go. There you go. So and I think a lot of us realize that no matter what social media someone's getting large on, it almost seems like YouTube is the end game they want to get to. So if you're on TikTok and you're growing through this, you know, just talking to your camera, and you're young, and then you're like, I'm big enough that I feel like I can bring an audience over to YouTube, you're gonna keep doing what's working, right? Especially YouTube. YouTube launched Shorts for the same reason. That was working. So just talking. So I don't think the young people were like, here's my plan. My plan is that I see older people doing this. I'm gonna do something different. Here's what I'm gonna do. I think they just naturally did it because it's natural. It's natural to tell a story. Well, like you said, they were seeing it on TikTok with other people, right? And even those people didn't have a plan. They're just like monkey see, monkey do. They're just like, okay, like let me replicate this, right? But you and I, you mentioned like we're older, like we started. There's a difference between. I'm gonna bring it like to sports. I'm not even a big sports guy, but I assume if you're a teenager and you just start playing basketball because you like it and you're good at it. You're not, you know, like you're 13, 14, you're not like strategize. You just grab the ball and you're just playing with the ball, right? And you're good at it. But if you're Michael Jordan or anybody, right, and you're watching the kid play, you are
analyzing.
You're watching him in a different way than his parents are watching him, right? You can't help but analyze because this is all you've done. So for us, we've done this for so long that when we see this happening, it's almost like we can't help but realize, oh, there's a shift happening. Here's what the shift is. Here's how it's working. Here's how I can implement this.
And the Michael Jordan and the 13-year-old kids still end up in the same place.
Correct.
And that's my point about it's a throwback to how YouTube started. Mm-hmm. And I would know this because I started in that era. And when I'm seeing, like, I'm not even on TikTok, and I actually kind of knew that about the TikTok videos, not to the degree that you're saying. It doesn't surprise me because I thought you were going to go a totally different direction with the TikTok thing. I was like TikTok creating YouTube Shorts. This is just the opposite of it. But the other thing I do know about TikTok is they're letting more longer videos show up. And they're like, why stop this 60-second rant when this could be a 6-minute rant? Right.
And it's crazy because those longer videos are usually just people talking. It's still like, it's not like people putting out like a whole YouTube review or whatever. It's like they're just talking longer.
Yeah.
And so if they're interesting and the story's interesting enough, you talk for 6 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, you're blowing up over there. Again, most people are just in their car. It's crazy how many times I swipe on TikTok and it's someone in their car.
Yeah, in their car.
In their car, funny. Just talking. They have their phone set up in
You could almost do a whole documentary about like in the car. Okay, first off, what were your thoughts after talking with Andrew there?
It's crazy to me how he is saying all the same things that you have been saying and that I have agreed with you on completely independently. Like literally all the same things, and actually added a couple things that I thought we'll definitely talk about here.
Well,
that, like blew my mind.
Give me one of the things that blew your mind.
I loved his comment about the TikTok thing.
Yes.
Right?
I was thinking the same thing, by the way.
Yeah, you should tell me your thoughts on it because you are coming from a perspective outside of TikTok.
Well, why don't you finish what you think and I'll just add to it or agree to it or whatever.
Yeah, so on TikTok, that was sort of where I was getting some of my ideas for when I started my vlog, right? I was looking for a cross between what you were doing and talking about on Vlogging Academy, but also learning from the techniques from the content techniques that people were doing on TikTok. And like, really simple one is just sitting there and talking, right? He talked about the car. I think that is an interesting phenomenon, right? But more broadly, I do think it is just about sitting there and talking. Like, I think about my videos, and I was like, I can't do the thing that you do on your cooking channel because you have something that you're actually filming, you have a recipe that you're working on. Me, I'm just talking about tech, so I got to do that same phenomenon and just talk about things like I'm like sitting in a chair in my backyard, right?
Yeah, and when he brought up TikTok, I thought he was going to go in the direction of like, TikTok created this because it was so short, the videos, it was so optimized that it birthed the opposite, which is the longer videos and more relaxed stuff. But he was saying it actually did both.
Yes.
He was talking about how some of the most viral videos, some of the most popular ones, and the ones that you just see popping up the most are people talking to the camera.
Yep.
And that's what we talk about in Vlogging Academy. That's what we're seeing a lot of creators start to do, which is just talk to the camera. And we are seeing that on the platform of YouTube becoming more and more common because that's what connects the viewer and the creator the most.
That was the second big thing he talked about was the relationship piece, right? And starting with a core audience and who you want to reach first. That's exactly in the same vein.
So you can combine the two. Set aside the platform TikTok, just the more personal, relatable, more like talking type of videos, and you combine it with the fact that if that is the core value of your content, there's no competition to that because no one can replicate you and your perspective, your opinion, your experience, and what you say. So if you always keep that at the core, that used to be old school YouTube. That's all there was. But as we thought about how do we optimize, how do we like raise the production, and it was like the editing and the camera, and then we got coached on like how to hook people in and the title and the thumbnail. It became something bigger, and I think arguably it's benefited YouTube.
For sure.
But we almost lost the U in YouTube, right? Like you say, what'd you say? The original saying was
broadcast yourself.
Broadcast yourself. That's all it was.
Yeah.
In fact, because of that slogan, that's what people did.
Yeah.
Without hesitation. I think the last thing I got, he said it more when we turn off the cameras. You have to have an element of you don't give a crap what people think, and you're not going to overthink what you do. And I've been saying, for me, this is the number one motivator. This is how I've uploaded over 100 vlogs in 100 days, is because I stopped thinking about what was strategic, what is the viewer going to want, what is trending on YouTube, how am I going to make money. I created what I wanted to create within the niche, right? For me, it's food. Okay, so there was still some strategy, but storytelling a lot more. I'm using myself and my perspective as, you know, the core part of my content, and then I'm just showing up every day, right? And that's part of the relationship building. That is the trust. Both the beginner, but especially the seasoned creator that's already built influence can learn from that. If you just show up in people's lives more and more, and that is the one thing TikTokers, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram Reelers have done. They show up every single day. But if you combine that with a lot of time, hence longer videos, Sam Sulek, then that's a whole nother ball game. And so even Andrew, who's been around forever, has a huge influence, does really well for himself in business, he also understands part of the storytelling and the relationship can be integrated even in the niche of tech, but still to do the same thing. And I think that was the big takeaway. It's like confirming what we're seeing, what we're hearing from other creators, and what we're doing and what we're experiencing from somebody that I never talked to him about this stuff. You know, I know we just talked about wrestling. That was just like for shits and giggles. But that we're all on the same page.
I mean, honestly, I think that that was profound, even in the beginning when you talk about wrestling, right? Because think about the thing that grabs him, and think about how long wrestlers had to do that. Like, pro wrestling had to be around in order to gain the traction that it did to have that moment, right? Yeah. You had to keep at it. You had to get the reps. You had to be sustainable. You had to keep doing it. It's the same concept. It's really the same concept. And what's the thing that ties it all together? Storytelling.
Oh, for sure. He did talk about that.
Storytelling is the thing that ties everything, and that is sustainable in its own right.
Well,
we all have stories to tell.
We were joking around about the greatest 5 minutes in WWE history, but that happened because of the decades of the build-up to make the ultimate story. Yes. And so even me, who has been out of the wrestling game in terms of being a fan, I watched that 5 minutes, and they integrated parts of the story that I understood in the 90s with the new generation, and I kind of knew what was going on, and that's what was fascinating about it. So yeah, you guys, that's Andru Edwards. You know, obviously, if you're not into tech, don't go looking at videos, but if you want to see the video, and let's put this in the description,
definitely,
that really sparked this conversation of what he's doing differently. That not only got him a lot more views than his normal videos get, but also got the attention of Apple. We'll put that link because he does a great job about integrating storytelling in a niche, being technology, that isn't being utilized, and it's still working and working at a high level. And this is just the beginning. So anything else you want to say?
Subscribe.
There you go. You guys subscribe if you are aspiring to be a creator, or you are a creator and you want to
hear more creator secrets.
Talk to you guys later.